Drive a truck to a place, and when you get there, it's another place. Everybody drive a truck. Everybody drive a truck to a place.
Hello, it's
Hey,
Trucks.
it's Trucks.
My e-brake is on. They changed things, so now my truck starts with the emergency brake on, and I have to manually disengage it. It's an extra little nibble of realism. Makes me feel like I'm really in a truck.
My car is in the shop at the moment because somebody dinged it with their excavator.
Oh,
And
did they really exactly ding it with an excavator?
No, that was a deep Trucks reference, like
Yeah,
the deepest
yeah.
possible Trucks reference.
Yeah, I wanted to know
Ooh,
if I wanted to
Speaking
know
of deep trucks, you fucked up the very first turn that you did, which is
I just wanted to know if it was real finally.
no. They in fact scraped me with their wing mirror while I was parked. I got back to the car in the middle of the night, didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Was driving home when I realized that there was a piece of paper stuck in my windshield wipers.
These guys should come help me. You know, if this was really happening, they'd like be trotting around to the back of my truck and give me hand signals I can read through the mirrors.
Those NP, well, maybe they have a job to do.
Maybe
and
they'd be laughing
so
their
do
asses.
you.
Do they look busy to you? They're like...
They're unloading boxes off of a UPS truck.
They were not. One of them was standing there with his hands behind his back, kind of doing pelvic thrusts idly.
Okay, we're gonna need to go back and confirm that that's in fact what was happening.
Alright, hold on.
Can't believe I missed. Oh shit,
This is the only way at this point.
he's still thrusting. Oh my God.
These men are not working hard.
He is pelvic thrusting.
I guess it's
And the
more
other
like
guy
he's
is
rolling around on the
despondent
balls
about
of his
it.
feet.
I know. The guy looks so sad. The other guy's checking his watch. All right.
Yeah, no hard work being done there.
Every day that we play this game, we appreciate it a little bit more.
American Trucks does not have the technology for those guys to be, you know, building up a pile of boxes, which once completely built goes and does something else. That was never going to happen. Why am I sliding backwards? I can't drive a truck today. How, Isaac,
Do you not have your e-brake on?
are you? My e-brake is not on.
Well, let me finish the anecdote. That
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you interrupted, and then
Hey,
we
I
can
didn't
move on to
interrupt
how
it. Life interrupted it.
That is true. I kind of interrupted myself even. Yeah, so dude scraped me with his wing mirror. I found the note in my windshield wipers. It's a good thing that it didn't blow away, because if it had, I would have had no way of contacting this guy and getting his insurance info. And but he was a good guy. Left me a note.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and got his insurance to pay for fixing it, which is surprisingly expensive for just this, like, it's a relatively deep scratch, but, you know, it's not a disfiguring one. I could have just let it ride.
Yeah.
Still, it bit into the metal, and I wanted to get that taken care of so that it wouldn't rust.
Yeah.
Because I love my car. Anywho, so it's in the shop for the week, which means that I am driving a rental car, and because everybody else is doing this too, the rental company was out of all reasonable cars,
Oh.
which means that I'm driving a land boat.
A land boat?
Yeah.
God, I
it's
want
like-
that to be literally true.
It's kind of yachty. It's basically a minivan that's been crammed into the shape of an SUV. And my choice was that, a actual minivan or a pickup truck. I guess I probably should have taken the pickup truck, just for funsies, but I did not.
Someone's got to
So-
re-explain to me when it's possible to turn on right and when it's not.
With caution is the answer to that question.
Yeah, but the game doesn't know whether I'm being cautious. I
think
just
that the
did a
game's-
right turn on red, and maybe it's just never legal here.
Maybe trucks aren't supposed to do it.
That would make
It
some
wouldn't
sense.
surprise me if the trucks aren't supposed to do it, given
Yeah,
how
yeah,
long
yeah.
it takes you to turn right.
Anyway, that time I
Um,
definitely interrupted you. Please go on.
That's fine. I mean, there's not a whole lot more to the story than that, except that, like, in terms of driving an enormous vehicle, which I'm not used to. And it has a push-button e-brake, which I'm also not used to, and so I'm continuously having it on. And that's why it came up in the first place.
That is funny, because I, too, have a push-button e-brake in this truck, which you can't see here, but it's on my circle button.
I just like a lever to pull. Makes me feel like it's a real thing, you know.
It seems like you want it to be easy to tell at a glance whether your e-brake is engaged. I guess there's probably a light or something that is on.
There isn't even a light.
Oh my God.
The word brake appears on your HUD essentially.
That's not where you want that information to be.
No, it isn't. It's actually quite bad. But you know, I'm not one to complain. I have this land wheel to drive for the week, and I would never have driven a vehicle like this otherwise. So that's pleasant.
The subject of this truck is automotive UX design.
You know, it's really important. Like, I feel like you should be able to get into any car and pretty quickly know where everything is, but it's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You know, various kind of essential features are just scattered willy-nilly all over the place in cars with different makes and models, and I feel like we could use like a sort of
Standardization.
USB standard, like style standardization of where shit goes in cars. Speaking of which, finding the USB port in a car
Oh man,
can be challenging. Can be really, really challenging.
Yeah.
They hide them all sorts of places.
The world needs standards. But honestly, that is not the subject of this Trex. We do have a subject for this Trex.
We do. We, two white people, are going to talk about the latest Spike Lee joint mostly because it's a relatively interesting piece of work, and it is also a thing that we both happen to have watched.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen very often.
It was unplanned, even.
Yeah. It's apparent. It's enough of a cultural event that we both decided that it was worth seeing.
I guess it was kind of a cultural event. Not like as much of one as... It feels like the cultural event is like just 3 movies with principally non-white casts have come out like all at once, which is cool. It's good to see that this kind of thing can happen now.
And we elected to see not the romantic comedy one.
Not the romantic comedy one. I've heard I would still like to see, I'm sure the romantic comedy one, Crazy Rich Asians, is just fine. It has Awkwafina in it, who I hate, but other than that...
have you seen any of Awkwafina's acting roles?
I have not.
Maybe she's good at that, because
I saw her in the trailers for this, and it was still her doing her thing, which... I will avoid putting too fine a point on what her thing is, but it's not a good thing to me.
Well, she's getting nothing but plaudits from all of the woke media outlets for whatever fucking reason. To explain the context on this, we happened to see Awkwafina doing stand-up at Le Poisson Rouge some time ago.
Musical stand-up.
Opening for like Deerhoof, which is not ideal for a comedian.
No.
But she sucked.
Yeah, she kind of did.
She did. She definitely sucked. And, you know...
But the other one of these is
Those
thank
are
you.
the breaks.
The other one of these is Thank You for Calling, which I would still like to see.
Sorry to bother you, I think.
Oh, you're right. It's sorry to bother you. Thank you for calling. Is that a name of another thing, or just it's another name that it could have had? No, it couldn't have had that name. Nobody says that to telemarketers. So never mind. Who knows how I got that name? But interestingly, I saw a kind of an argument against BlacKkKlansman
I was going to bring that up too, by Boots Riley. Yeah,
by Boots Riley, the director of...
He basically attacked the movie for not being sufficiently radical.
I thought he made a few good points. It was definitely the... I mean, yeah, I guess we should get into it later. But BlacKkKlansman, yes. How shall we begin? How shall we begin?
First of all, Josh, I thought this was a really excellent piece of movie making.
Yeah, it definitely was.
I thought that the soundtrack was superb.
I can't say oh yeah, the way it would sometimes play like this weird theme song was pretty cool. That's the main thing that stuck with me soundtrack wise.
It's real. It wasn't afraid to go like really balls deep into, you know, kind of interesting orchestral motifs.
Yeah.
But clearly was also enough mood set that it didn't come out. I think this movie used a lot of like fun techniques, which in the hands of a lesser filmmaker would have come off as corny. Yes. Like the split screen stuff.
It allows itself to go high camp sometimes.
It does, and which is appropriate because it's the story that it's telling is a farce.
Right. Yes.
But it's also a tragedy at the same time.
And it's a story which frequently toes the line between like dramatic plausibility and, you know, that kind of stranger than fiction sensibility. Like some of the situations in this movie, if you saw it in a movie that wasn't this movie that wasn't doing the balancing act quite as well, you would say, like, that's such a ridiculous contrivance. This could never happen in a... Like, I think the main example of that comes to my mind was then when the undercover agent who was spying on the KKK was assigned to be the bodyguard for the head guy of the KKK. Like, you think to yourself, like, there's no fucking way. There's just this kind of operational security. But it being based on a true story, you think, you know what? I could see it actually maybe going down this way in the absurdities of real life. Even if it maybe didn't actually go down that way. Sometimes.
I've not actually looked into which details of this movie were true and which weren't.
Right.
Like, I have a pretty clear idea that the chase scene in Bombing Business was all invented to make it into a movie as opposed to a...
Sure.
As opposed to a sort of meditation. But the rest of it, I think that it's really... it's more fun just to sort of let the absurdities wash over you and know that, like, at least half of them are based on things that actually happened.
Yeah.
I think that the movie does a really great job managing its tone. I think that a tone that we both are fans of is like, despair comedy. Mm-hmm. And the way that this movie is not afraid to go full slapstick.
Yeah. But
never lets up with the creeping dread.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying, like slapstick and dread at the same time is a pretty neat thing to pull off, in my opinion.
And it's also, as a movie, just like remarkably aware of shit. I'm in the wrong spot. Remarkably aware of the different audiences that it has. Yeah. Like, I think one of my favorite parts of the movie is that really, really uncomfortable opening with Alec Baldwin, which seems to just kind of underline the way that a movie like this, where like there's all kinds of openly racist language being put out there, like is in danger of being like is in danger of attracting the wrong audience for the wrong reasons, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's no danger of that happening here, like the way that he is handled the subject matter. And I think that a big
I can bypass this fucking thing. I don't have to fuck around with this at all. Okay.
Yeah. I think that he's intentionally made like the decisions to make his points as unsubtle as he possibly can. Mm-hmm. And like if one goes up to, if one's is having an imaginary argument with us and goes, well, like, this is really as subtle as a hammer, why would you, surely people can pick it up. And it's like, really? Well, they don't seem to have.
Yeah.
Like, turns out that you have to make these points really, really loud for them to sink in.
There are a few points, though, where the point being made, I found it a little hard to keep track of, or at least I found it a little easy to read it uncharitably. Like, there was the scene where you're seeing a KKK rally, not a rally as such, more of a private ritual, I suppose, like an initiation ritual for some new members, and like it's intercut with scenes from a meeting of what was the organization called? The college.
The Black Students Union.
The Black Students Union. Yes, where they're being talked to by some old school activist talking about the horrors that he has witnessed from back in the day. And at the end of this, like, you see it cuts between the group of students going Black Power and the KKK going White Power. And I think what's been being gone for there is a sort of... It seems like it's trying to draw your attention to how not equivalent these things are. But while I was watching it, part of me was going like, maybe don't do it like that. Maybe you're making these things look the same instead of different.
Well, my take on that is that is probably part of the tone of the movie that Boots Riley would object to. Mm-hmm. Because, like, I think Spike Lee is a liberal, not a radical.
For sure.
I think that he is not actually on board with, arm yourself,
right.
The race war is coming. And while it pains to show, that the black student union has like really, really good reasons for getting to that place, and the Ku Klux Klan have really, really bad reasons for coming to that place.
Sure.
It's not a place where you want to be in either way, if you see what I mean. I feel like that was the point that was being made by drawing that equivalency there.
I could see that.
And because everything else surrounding that moment was at pains to demonstrate why it was a false equivalence, you know.
I think the takeaway that I found from Boots Riley's, it's not really a takedown of the film, whatever you want to call it.
It's an ideological critique.
Yeah.
You know, the dude made, like, all of the, you know, articles I've seen have called it like a blistering takedown, but it was like, boy, what a great piece of filmmaking. Here's why. Here are the ideological points that it makes that I disagree with.
Yeah.
Which is, like,
I think
a different kind of a thing.
What I find myself kind of wanting to agree with Boots Riley on is that, you know, if you're doing this take, if you're making this movie which appears to be sympathetic toward, you know, black activists in the 70s and liberation movements and all that sort of thing, you probably do want to make sure that when you call your movie a true story, you're not making, like, the places where you diverge from reality ought to not be misleading. And I think BlacKkKlansman might step over that line a few places, basically going under the assumption that Boots Riley's assertions about the history were accurate, because I sure haven't done the research myself.
Like, his assertions about the reality being different were not this specific case was different. It was like the zeitgeist of the era was different.
There were a few. He believes that the activist whose name I've forgotten, Kwame something or other, probably wouldn't have told anybody to arm themselves when asked what to do. Like, that's potentially a pretty significant thing. And there's also the matter of the cop narrative being sourced largely from unverifiable accounts from autobiographies and memoirs and whatnot that, you know, potentially were manipulated as written to make the cops see, especially when the declassified stuff about police infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan and black liberation movements do everything to make it look as though the reality is that cops are actually sabotaging black liberation movements and, you know, kind of creating assassination attempts in the Ku Klux Klan rather than trying to stop them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like this movie was written from the perspective of a cop based on the autobiography of a cop.
Yes.
You know, and I think that there is an ideological axe to grind that it has, which comes about it has an ideological perspective which comes about as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives voice to the perspective that Boots Riley is articulating there.
Mm-hmm.
In the activist character.
Yes.
Who is never shown to be wrong.
It's true.
Their argument is never.
She is maybe shown to be wrong, in the sense that she believes that the cops can do no good, and in the narrative of the film, the cops definitely do at least some good.
The cops do some good despite everything. You know?
Yeah.
And actually, the cops, like, if you actually look at what happened, like the sum total of what the cops achieved in this movie,
right? The bombing,
it's nothing.
The bombing, people talk about the bombing at the end of this movie as though the cops heroically prevented it. Although, from what I recall, my impression watching that scene was that the bombing was botched before the cops did anything. Did you come away with that same feeling?
That is 100% what happened.
Yeah.
The white supremacists managed to blow themselves up all on their own. What happened was that the cop who had, you know, infiltrated the KKK got there too late, and then was beaten by other cops who thought he wasn't a cop.
Yes.
Right? It's a fucking farce.
Totally.
The cops are like, and then they're taken off the case, and then the case is kind of erased from the top down afterwards.
Yeah. So it's he
gets like a personal moment of satisfaction, but the actual cops and the actual FBI are not only not shown to be helping him, but in the end are shown to be like the guy the guy from the FBI shows up and shows him some files.
Right, and
but
he's
like
doing
it's clear
it
that he's acting on his
clandestinely.
own and not on behalf of the organization. That the organization cannot help him.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like it does not say that these institutions were not racist. And the very first thing that happens is that he's sent to infiltrate this, you know, black radical movement. So like I think that all of that is present in the movie, and that like if you look at what actually happens in the movie, it's not, you know, it's like the sort of the place where the real rubber meets the road is that like I think that Spike Lee is like, okay, all cops are not bastards, and but even that he gives a character the voice to say all cops are bastards and doesn't actually demonstrate her to be wrong,
right,
beyond the fact that there are a few cops who are trying to do the right thing,
right,
which is not out of the question in my opinion.
for sure. We should
Yeah.
maybe discuss the weird whiplash that comes from that botched bombing scene, followed by a very different kind of farce, which is the scene where all the cops have a jolly time arresting the one open racist in their ranks and like
That
have a good
scene
laugh about it
really
afterwards.
stuck out like a sore thumb to me, right?
Yeah.
It does seem like it was put in maybe at someone's insistence.
You think
know?
so? Yeah, that
Like-
could be. I was wondering if there was maybe some, like that maybe it was existing in the same very heightened register as that almost final shot where they do the dolly shot down the hallway in like the purely stylized Spike Lee way, where you know they're standing on platforms
Yeah.
and not moving their feet. That whole high camp deal. I was wondering if it was existing in a similar dreamlike register to that, where like the unreality of it is the thing you're supposed to notice.
I mean, I think that I would. That's one of the things where it seems like you might, to say that you might be giving him too much credit. Mm-hmm. But like, on the other hand, the sheer savagery with which that moment is immediately undercut.
Yeah.
You know, like they all band together to, you know, sacrifice the racist cop, and that's I think that also he might have been making a point about the way that we deal with racism when, like now, like we find the racist, and we fire or we shame or we, you know, kick out the racist, and then
Right.
the
system remains racist.
really quite racist machinery continues on. It's like,
Yeah.
you found the racist guy, so everything's okay, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That felt like a comment on that to me, and like part of the sort of heightened, you know, gee gosh, we got him, you know, feeling there. You know, which also included the girl who hates all cops, like willingly working with the cops.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It seemed false to me in possibly an intentional way.
I could see it. I would definitely like to believe it.
Yeah.
I am
It's
left
like
with
I'm obviously willing to give a lot. I mean, this is a true fact about me. I'm willing to give credit where I see a lot of craft. And,
Sure.
You know, that may or may not be true.
if it weren't such like I mean, obviously all films are political and all of that, but if this one weren't such an inherently intentionally political film, I would probably have an easier time going like, yeah, I have a few ideological quibbles here and there, but you know, whatever, it's a good movie. In this case, like there's like a lot on the line historically in a way with how accurately it's presenting its information and the narratives it reinforces and how well the historical content of it should really reinforce the narrative it wants to present and all of that. I think there's some questions there that are
I'm willing to. I agree with you, but I'd like to present a counterpoint.
Sure. Is there gas
I
here?
don't-
God, I hope there's gas here. I don't think there's any gas here.
Not at a rest area.
No.
A rookie road trip mistake. I think that this is not intended to be a here's what happened movie.
Sure.
I think this is intended to be a here's what is happening movie. The ending sequence, of course, which I'm interested to hear your opinions about.
Yeah.
Wow. Slick driving there.
Trying to spend as little gas as possible.
The ending sequence of the movie really hammers that point home, where it's like we are talking about themes, we're talking about institutional racism, and I feel like this movie is specifically talking to white people. Mm-hmm. Like enough like sort of really eye rolly, here's what's happening, guys, like nudge nudge exposition happens around the racial stuff.
Yeah.
That I think the movie is consciously trying to speak A, to Jews, and B, to white folks generally.
Go on.
And as such, I think that he pulled some punches.
Mm.
I think this was a movie that was trying to persuade. Trying to make you like its protagonist, trying to make you view its antagonists as, like, not representative of all white people, but also trying to educate in terms of the larger structural issues there, and like to...
I'm out of fuel.
Oh, well, best of luck.
Thank you. Oh no, it's uphill.
Oh dear. I'm going to break off here in the middle of my point just because this is nail-biting family entertainment right here.
There's no chance. There's no chance of making it.
There really isn't.
Wait a minute, it's right around the next corner.
Oh my god.
There's still no chance, unless I can start rolling downhill.
You've reached the top of the hill. I think that you have some momentum that you might be able to pick back up here. Here's some downhill.
Oh my
Holy
god.
cojones.
Please, please, please. It's going to be one of those break in the right exact spot situations.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no way that you're going to pull this off, but I'm so excited.
Wait for it. We're coming up on the gas station.
Take the curve, take the turn. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh!
Oh no!
I couldn't make it over the curb.
You might have had a chance at that if you had...
God, all I need to do is walk over to that gas station and buy a fucking... Okay, we're getting towed.
Tragic. That was fantastic, though. That may have driven my point entirely out of my head, but I think he meant this as to be an ideologically persuasive movie, and I think that he was kinder to white people than you might otherwise be under the circumstances. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that is the more politically savvy choice. I mean, and there's room for disagreement there, but
I'd have to work on it. I don't. Mm-hmm. I certainly don't all the way agree right away.
Yeah, I'm just pitching that basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. I am in the stupid position of having to come up with a cogent response while driving a truck.
As a Jewish adjacent person, I appreciated the way the movie was like, hey,
I'm curious have
you considered intersectionality and solidarity along those lines?
Sure.
Because they certainly hate you too.
I was gonna ask. That's what you feel the movie was saying directly to Jewish people?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I certainly feel like it. In showing like flips. Hey, I always thought of myself as a white person in America, but these people clearly hate me as much as they hate you.
Sure.
Maybe there's something going on here. Is like, particularly in a political moment where anti-Semitism is on the rise on the left. Mm-hmm. I think a movie that is like, hey, you're actually oppressed peoples are actually like natural allies, and like there's plenty of tension between black people and Jewish people and various other stripes of left-leaning people, but can we all agree that maybe we should work together on this rising fascism business? I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the hey, you may think of yourself as white, but if these people get what they want, they're coming for you too. Your whiteness is even more. Your whiteness is probably the most tenuous whiteness.
Sure.
So I enjoyed that. I had something else that I wanted to say about this, but it's gone out of my head. But it was kind of fun to me, or fun is definitely not the right word. But he showed the footage from the Unite the Right March,
the Charlottesville,
where they were the Charlottesville March, yeah, where they were, all of the media at the time reported like, oh, we don't know whether they're, Whether they're saying you will not replace us or Jews will not replace us, like who's to say? You know, they're chanting something.
It's quite clear.
They were definitely chanting Jews will not replace us. And
Yes.
I appreciated that.
And
because I sort of bought into that line.
You could fucking ask them what they were saying, and they would tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so bizarre, journalism.
These narratives, you find like if you know what you're looking for, you find that there is absolutely institutional sentiment to minimize anti-Semitism. Like if you're looking,
Go on.
it's like it's almost like it's not polite to mention it, you know, like because a swastika is such a loaded symbol. You see histories of the Second World War that try to be as like dainty as possible around the Holocaust because it's a fraught issue, you know. Like I think that Jewish people in America generally need to be more concerned right now. You know, I think a lot of us are, but
Yes, Monica's looking in the door.
oh.
It's very
Hey,
distracting.
Monica, are you concerned as a Jewish person?
She
I
closed the door.
think Monica's
She's gone.
probably concerned.
She wouldn't have been able to hear you anyway.
You should ask her.
Sure. So, continue giving advice to Jews, please.
I'm in no way qualified to give advice to Jews. I am like minimally Jewish, but as you know, as my dad used to say, you would be Jewish enough for Hitler, son. And you know,
True that.
it's
yeah.
it's good to remember occasionally that is actually the final metric in these situations.
Right.
If they had your way, you would be killed for this. You know, no
Yeah.
matter how white you think you are. So.
I'm curious, when we say anti-Semitism is on the rise on the left, are we talking about like Jeremy Corbyn? Or what are we talking
I think
about?
it's sort of, I mean, anti-Semitism has been more or less acceptable on the left for a long time because A, anti-Semitism is more or less acceptable everywhere, but B, because of Israel's continued horrific treatment of Palestinian people and
Right.
the occupation and the slaughter of civilians and the having like people within their borders who don't have like the same rights as as Jews and masquerading as a democracy when essentially they're a theocracy and all of this stuff that people who are not Zion there's plenty of things that are that the state of Israel has done that are wrong, but I think that is sort of given a fertile breeding ground for people who have anti-Semitic agendas to, you see this all the time, right? Like people who have access to grind find radical communities and steer them toward kinds of extremism that they are sympathetic toward. And it gets mainstreamed after a while.
It's true. I avoid most of the discourse on Israel and such, so I don't think I've seen much of the anti-Semitism that you're referring to personally.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you mostly see it if you are looking for it, because there's an entire coded vocabulary that is
the main extent to which I've looked into it has been to satisfy myself as to whether anti-Semitism is being deployed as a smear in the case of Corbyn in particular.
Yes, which it is.
Right.
It is absolutely being used as a smear by the right against him and by members of his own party against him. But also, Labour has a huge fucking anti-Semitism problem.
Yeah, I can believe it, although I don't know any of the specifics.
Those two things are simultaneously true, which is like a difficult one to... it's a difficult one to compress into a tweet,
right.
If you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But it's absolutely true that Corbyn has been hesitant to make as fundamental a denouncement, and it's taken him a very long time to make categorical denouncements of anti-Semitism because he's aware that he will alienate large parts of his own base by doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's being a politician when you have fanatics in your base, like when you have extremists in your base. It pushes you toward opinions that you might not hold for yourself, but you are a pragmatist. It's for the good of it's for the good of socialism, and so you try to sort of skate a middle path between people who think that Jews should be killed and people who shouldn't, and people who don't, so it's like.
Are you doing something similar when you make a movie making it look like cops weren't in fact engineering the assassinations of black activists in the 70s, but were instead trying to prevent such things?
I don't think that that's the point that the movie is making.
It's not, but it does make things look that way.
Yeah.
I think we haven't gone into the core strength of the movie, which I think is that it's a very good character study of a person, a mostly fictitious person, based on a real person who finds himself in a position of code switching, which I think the language of the film itself mirrors very well. The way it switches between the kind of self-serious tension scenes and the highly campy, stylized scenes. It switches up its own identity a few times over the course of itself, which is a lovely trick.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of having to shake my head a little bit to get around the segue that you just made.
Oh, sorry. But we can. The Trex is about to end, and I didn't want to just shit talk the movie.
No, that's fine. Like, I wasn't really expecting to talk about anti-Semitism on the left in this movie, but
sure,
or in this Trex, but apparently we made our way there. But yeah, no, I think that it's all of the tonal hopping around that the movie does, and that's definitely a big part of it. Really delicate control over the comedic value of a given scene, the pathos of a given scene, the way that various things are done. Also, like, fun to see Lee getting a few extra shots in at Birth of a Nation.
Right.
Were you aware that, like, Lee was nearly thrown out of his MFA program at NYU for not paying the proper obeisances to Birth of a Nation?
Good Lord. Good Lord. I've never seen Birth of a Nation, but it's the clips of it in this movie didn't make it look like anything special. I'll put it that way.
It was generally heralded as like this, really groundbreaking piece of movie making. Like, even when I was a kid, that was kind of the cultural position that was the first thing you heard about it, was that it was this groundbreaking piece of filmmaking, not that it was like a racist Jeremiah, which sort of in retrospect becomes the more important part of it.
Yeah. Interesting, though. Interesting. There's another segue back to the ideological crimes of BlacKkKlansman there. Another forced segue that we could partake in.
We could indeed. I'm going to go see the Boots Riley movie this week.
I would like to go
see what kind of art this guy is making.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a Boots Riley movie. At least not as
it's
far
his
as
first. He's a rapper.
Movie.
He's not a director.
I see.
In that sense.
I don't think I've ever heard a Boots Riley album.
He was in the Coup. You ever heard of them?
No.
They were like this radical leftist rap collective who were active in the early aughts, I think, for the most part. Apparently, it's pretty good for a debut in terms of chops. So
cool.
I'm gonna go and take a look, see what I think, see if my white person feelings were adequately coddled by it.
That'll be great. Let's hope so, and let's only make trucks about this kind of thing from now on.
I think this was a more successful Trucks than
certainly than the last one. Yes,
the
last one we recorded, by the way, not the last one we uploaded necessarily.
Just so that it's a matter of public record, can I reiterate that you, Josh Trevitt?
Oh no, don't do it.
Thought that
I'm gonna.
All right, we'll let that one sort of linger.
Oh, well, now it sounds worse, doesn't it? It sounds worse than the mistake I actually made, because it's good.
Okay, all right. So the you, Josh Trevitt, told me that Spike Lee made a movie called Boys to Men.
I would like to correct you slightly. I didn't tell you that Spike Lee made Boys to Men. I said, didn't he make, like, Boys to Men?
Yes.
Thinking it turns out
what you meant was Boys in the Hood, which Spike Lee did not direct.
Right.
Anyway, I felt that even because nothing else from what was a generally terrible trucks will go up. I thought that moment needed to be recorded for posterity.
Yeah. Well, I hope that summary had some of the same effect. Probably
Yes,
not.
indeed. Probably not. Oh well. Good trucko.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks for
talk to you soon.
thanks for truckoing. You'll talk to me soon. Yeah.
I will.
It turns
And
out
to-
when
and
we
to all
stop.
of
It
our
turns out
trucks
when we
fans.
stop recording the trucks, we actually immediately hang up on each other. We haven't stopped
yeah,
recording
that-
yet. All of this is still happening.
Fuck. End the trucks, Josh.
It's over.